Hey there. You ever look at the news and it just feels random? A local hero passes away in one story, politicians are fighting over a budget in the next, and then there's some chaotic incident hundreds of miles away. But what if I told you they're not disconnected at all? What if they're all part of the exact same story? Well, today, we're going to connect those dots and uncover a hidden pattern of power in America. Let's get into it. So, what is the connection? The answer in a word is power. How you build it, how you use it, and maybe most importantly, who gets to wield it. We're going to go on a journey, starting in just one community, then zooming out to the state level, all the way out to the global stage. And then we're going to bring it all back home and explore how these massive forces actually affect your life and the choices you can make. So our story kicks off in Bakersfield, California. And to really get what's happening there today, you've got to look back. You have to look at the trailblazers of yesterday who fought to build power from the inside out, basically dismantling the walls of exclusion, one brick at a time. And this is where we meet someone truly remarkable, Dr. Irma Carson. Now, this timeline you're looking at, it's not just a resume. It's a map of a lifelong strategy. Think about it. Starting way back in 1959, she walked into places where she was not expected to be, from City Hall to the police force. Every single step was a first, and with each one, she was carving out a path and creating a voice for her community from inside the very systems that governed their lives. This was a decades-long project of building influence, step by methodical step. Dr. Carson's legacy of working from the inside is it's incredibly powerful. But today, leaders like Reverend Wesley Crawford are up against a different kind of challenge. They're trying to unite a community that's become fractured and build power from the outside in. And it's such a striking contrast, right? Where Dr. Carson was this singular, powerful voice breaking through barriers, Reverend Crawford sees today's problem as fragmentation. The challenge isn't just about one person breaking down a door anymore. It's about trying to get enough people to all push on that door in the same direction at the same time. And this number right here, this is the stark reality of that fragmentation, just 18%. That's the voter turnout for African Americans in Kern County. It just goes to show you that despite this long, powerful history of advocacy, when civic engagement is low, a community's potential power, well, it stays potential. So this is the fundamental question of local power that Reverend Crawford is asking. And you know what? It's the same question Dr. Carson answered with her entire career. How do you turn your presence into real influence? How do you get that seat at the table? It's a struggle that really defines the nature of democracy all over America. That whole question of getting a seat at the table, well, that leads us perfectly to our next level. We're zooming out from the local community to the state level. Because if getting a seat at the table is the goal, then guess what? The state budget is the table. It is the place where priorities become policy and where power is literally expressed in dollars and cents. And look at this. Right out of the gate, you can see a power struggle over what's even real. Check out these two bars. The governor's office, they're projecting a pretty small deficit. But the nonpartisan legislative analyst's office, they see a massive $18 billion hole. It all comes down to their assumptions about the economy. So these numbers, they're not just data points, they're the battleground for California's future. And we're not talking about small change here. The total proposed budget is a staggering $349 billion. That's a river of money that's going to shape the lives of millions of people. This isn't just an accounting exercise. It's the financial engine for what would be the world's fifth largest economy. And every single dollar represents a choice about what and who the state really values. And this really highlights one of those key priorities. The budget is proposing a record high level of funding for every single student in K through 12 schools. It shows how even when money's tight, a state can decide to channel its power, its resources, into a specific area, in this case, education. But, wielding that kind of power, it also means making some incredibly tough, sometimes painful choices. Because of changes in federal funding, about 200,000 people in California could get moved to a much more limited healthcare plan. So the very same budget that's setting records in one area might be forced to make some really difficult cuts in another. This is the sharp end of state power. Okay, so let's zoom out one last time. We're going from the state house to the national and even the international stage. And out here, power isn't just about budgets and votes. It's about military and law enforcement power and the big ideas that are used to justify it. So let's break down what happened here, this tragedy in Minneapolis. It starts with a confrontation on the street. It escalates in seconds. Federal agents approach a vehicle, it moves, an agent grabs the door, and then opens fire. A woman who the city's own police chief later confirmed was not the target of any investigation is killed. So what happens next? Instantly, a battle kicks off, not with weapons, but with words. As you see here, the federal government immediately frames the agent's actions as self-defense against an act of domestic terrorism. But the city's mayor, he calls that a garbage narrative. This is a raw, intense struggle to control the story, to define what really happened and whose use of force was justified. So you might be wondering, where does this kind of approach even come from? Well, this quote from a high-level White House advisor really lays the philosophy bare. The idea that the world is fundamentally governed by force, well, that suggests that power isn't something you use as a last resort. It's the primary tool you use to shape events, both here at home and around the world. And don't think for a second that this philosophy stays within the country's borders. It extends way beyond, directly shaping foreign policy. Out in international waters, U.S. forces seize a Russian-flagged tanker that's linked to Venezuela. Russia, of course, calls it a violation of international law. The U.S. says it's just protecting its national interests. The scale is totally different, but the principle is exactly the same: an assertive, direct use of force to achieve a policy. Okay, we've gone from the street to the state house to the world stage. But what about the power you can build for yourself? Let's zoom all the way back in and talk about the kind of power that comes from having a valuable skill. Let's talk about economic power. I love this phrase from OIC of America: skills pay bills. It sounds so simple, right? But it's so powerful. In a world full of these complex systems and huge forces, just the ability to do something that people really need, that gives you tangible leverage. It's a direct path to personal power. And this isn't just some nice idea. Look at the numbers. This chart shows the direct financial impact. That big colored slice there, that represents a potential 25 to 30% pay increase for workers who get the right industry credentials. I mean, that is absolutely a life-changing difference. And what's great is that this kind of power is totally within reach for so many people. We're not talking about needing a 4-year degree that costs a fortune. We're talking about high-demand certifications in areas like the ones you see here. Things like trucking, IT support, skilled trades. These are things that can take a few months, not years to get. They are concrete pathways to economic stability and really self-determination. Which brings us right back to where we started. We've seen how power works on every level, from the decades-long fight of one woman in Bakersfield to the billion-dollar decisions in Sacramento, all the way to the use of force on a global scale. And we've also seen that power can exist in a skill, in a certification, in your own economic independence. So as we wrap this up, the question I want to leave you with is this: in a world of such big forces, what is the most powerful tool for change that you hold in your own hands?